Hey guys, tonight we're stepping into something a little stickier. A time of smoky parlours, whispered deals, and dreams that died in corsets. We're going back to 1900s New York, the kind of place where you could buy a steak, lose your soul, and catch typhoid, all on the same block. But we're not here for Gilded Age glamour. No, we're here for the other side of the coin. The one covered in fingerprints and regret. Welcome to the world of the working girls. The harlots, the soiled doves, the women behind the red curtain. Spoiler alert, it wasn't sexy. It was a slow, glitter-covered death sentence. Before we dive in, take a second to like the video and subscribe, but only if you're into tragic history whispered like a lullaby. And let me know in the comments what time it is where you are. I like imagining who's drifting off while I describe venereal disease and broken dreams. Now, dim the lights, maybe lie back. Let the hum of your fan replace the sound of a rattling streetcar. And get ready, because tonight, you're not you. You're someone else entirely. Congratulations! You've just woken up in a rented room above a saloon in 1903 Manhattan. The good news? You're alive? The bad news? You're alive in the body of a woman with 3 names, and none of them are on a lease. The mattress beneath you is barely more than horsehair and springs, sagging like it gave up years ago. Which, to be fair, it probably did. Your back is crooked into a question mark. Your neck feels like it slept through a brawl. And your arm is still wrapped around a man you don't recognise in the daylight. You try to remember his name. Was it Charlie? Frank? The one who asked if you wanted to see Coney Island sometime in that voice like wet gravel and broken promises. Doesn't matter. He's already snoring again, mouth open, smelling faintly of whiskey, lard, and generational disappointment. You sit up, slowly, because moving too fast means risking a head rush or vomiting on the floor, and the floor is already a mosaic of cigarette burns, shoe polish, and something that's either dried blood or expired ketchup. Your ankles ache. Your thighs are bruised. There's a wad of crumpled bills stuffed into the top of your stocking, damp with sweat and someone else's excitement. Welcome to your morning, if you can call it that. There's light outside, thin and yellow, slicing through the torn lace curtains. The sound of horse hooves echoes from the street below, cut occasionally by the hiss of a steam vent or the clatter of a distant trolley. Somewhere, someone's yelling. Somewhere else, a baby's crying. But here, in this dusty room that smells like gin, powder, and wilted flowers, the day begins with a headache and the aftertaste of survival. You get up, 1 foot at a time, testing the floor for weak boards. The room creaks around you like it's judging. You're wearing a chemise. Barely. The ribbon's torn, and the front's stained with last night's makeup, and maybe some of your soul. There's no mirror in the room, just a piece of polished tin nailed to the wall, warped so badly it makes you look like you're drowning in a funhouse. You splash a little water from the basin onto your face. It's cold, metallic, and faintly brown. Good enough. You don't remember the last time you truly felt clean. Not bathed in a tub clean, but bone deep, I don't want to shed my skin clean. Because in this life, the dirt isn't just on your body. It's in your name, your jobs, or your choices. It clings to you like the city smog, like men's eyes, like the lies you tell yourself just to make it to the next hour. Your name, or at least the one you're using this week, is Lila, or maybe May. Something soft, something forgettable. Your real name's buried somewhere under the ash and perfume. but it doesn't get much use anymore. No one pays for honesty. The man in your bed stirs, mumbles something about being late for the docks, and then farts loudly before rolling over. You pretend you didn't hear it. You've heard worse. You've smelled worse. You've lived worse. You glance over to the small table by the window. There's a comb with broken teeth, a cracked compact with half a cake of rouge, a stub of eyeliner you sharpened with a bread knife, and a single earring you haven't matched in weeks. Beneath it all, your rent due notice. Again. Mrs. DeLeo doesn't care if you're tired, if business is slow, or if one of your clients got rough and left you limping. She wants her $2 by Friday, or you're on the street with the rats and the goddamn musicians. There's a knock at the door, sharp, twice. It's Dolly. She never waits long. "Rise and rot, May," she calls through the wood. "Mrs. DeLeo says we've got to scrub the stairs again. Said a city inspector's coming. Wear something that hides the bruises." You grunt. Not yes. Not no. Just enough to say I heard you, and I hate this too. You pull your corset off the peg, where it hangs like a warning. The stays are bent from too many shifts. The ribbon's frayed, and the busk cracked from where you fell last month, trying to dodge a drunk with a jealous wife. You tighten it slowly, feeling your lungs compressed like they're folding into a suitcase. Breathing is a luxury. Posture is survival. You find your stockings, laddered, of course, and your petticoat with a suspicious stain near the hem. You shake it out like shaking out shame, and it doesn't work. It never does. But you wear it anyway. Modesty's a performance. And you, darling, are on stage from the moment your feet hit the floor. In the hallway, the scent of hash browns drifts up from the street like a cruel joke. Your stomach twists, but you ignore it. Breakfast costs money. Hunger doesn't. You pass Minnie's door, locked, thank God, and try not to hear the coughing behind it. She's been sick for days. No one talks about it, but everyone knows. If the madam finds out, Minnie's done. Coughing girls scare the clients. No one wants to pay for affection and catch consumption as a bonus. Downstairs, Dolly's already sweeping, lips painted fire red, and eyes rimmed with black like a raccoon on a bender. She winks at you. "Someone left their teeth in the sink again," she says. "If it's Freddie, I swear I'm going to glue him to his moustache." You try to laugh, but it comes out thin. There's a dull ache in your jaw from where you clenched it through something last night. His name might have been Freddie, or maybe it was Harold. They all blur together like spilled ink. They call you baby, sweetheart, darling. Anything but your name. Anything but human. You grab a rag from the stack and start scrubbing the steps. The wood is warped and sticky in places. Someone dropped a bottle 2 nights ago, and no one's cleaned it properly. The stain seeps into your skirt. Of course it does. Stains are the only thing you keep. The parlour downstairs is quiet, but it won't be for long. By evening, the red lamp will flicker on. The piano will start wheezing out tunes, and the air will thicken with cigarette smoke and cheap longing. Men will stagger in, heavy with bourbon and loneliness, and you'll smile like they're princes instead of problems in suspenders. You'll take them upstairs, let them undress you like they earned the right, and you'll fake moans or stare at the ceiling, counting the cracks in the plaster. You'll let them believe they're gods, and maybe, if they're kind, or just fast, you won't have to dissociate too hard. And then you'll do it again, and again, and again, because this is your job. This is your life. Not glamorous, not scandalous. just survival in heels that don't fit. You weren't born for this. No one is. You were born to a house with lace curtains and Bible verses on the wall. Maybe a mother who told you to keep your legs crossed and your voice sweet. Maybe you ran. Maybe you were sent away. Maybe you came looking for work and found this instead. Maybe you got here by falling, slowly, deliberately, one bad decision at a time, until the only place left to land was a room with a red light and a lock that doesn't work. You're not stupid. You know the world hates girls like you, loves to use them, shame them, and then pretend they don't exist. But you're still here, still waking up, still dressing the wound and calling it lipstick. So here you are, scrubbing stairs, corset pinching, mouth dry, head full of fog. Your knees ache from a job that no one dares call work. Not out loud anyway. You're not a labourer, not a housewife, not a shop girl folding shirts behind a glass counter. You're something in between. Something most people don't have a word for that isn't whispered with disgust. The men who climb your stairs don't see labour in your hands. They see a favour, a transaction wrapped in lace. But you know better. You know every touch costs you something. And you know the price always rises. Outside, the city groans awake, not gently. It crashes into morning like a drunk tripping over cobblestones. Carts rattle past. Vendors shout in Polish, Italian, Yiddish, and anger. Children dodge horses in the streets like it's a game, barefoot and wild-eyed. The air tastes like coal smoke, and butchers run off. This city doesn't breathe. It coughs. And you live in its lungs, waiting to be hacked up with the rest of the filth. You pause, wiping sweat from your brow with the back of your hand. You've only been awake an hour, and already you feel used. Not in the dramatic, fainting on a chaise kind of way. In the real, practical, God, how am I still doing this kind of way? You weren't supposed to last this long. None of the girls are. You come in with soft skin and softer dreams, and in a year you're coughing into your sleeve, asking how much laudanum is too much to take and still make it through the night. It's not just the job, it's the math. Every man who climbs into your bed subtracts something. A little hope here, a little dignity there, a chip out of your spine, a bruise behind your knee. And the worst part? You lose pieces of yourself so slowly you don't even notice until one day you look in the mirror, or the warped metal trying to pass for one, and realised you've forgotten what your own voice sounds like when no one's watching. You were someone else once. Not special, just different. You try to remember that girl. You see her in fragments, a pair of boots she loved too much, a scarf with daisies, a laugh that didn't sound like sandpaper. She had plans. She thought she'd work in a cafe, maybe learn to sew. She thought cities were magical. She didn't know how many kinds of silence there were. She didn't know what it meant to pretend to like the way someone smells so you could afford a loaf of bread. That girl died quietly in a room just like this one. No one buried her. No one lit a candle. She just faded, and you, the new you, took her place. You learned the rules. You stopped asking questions. You practiced your moan until it sounded believable. You learned which clients liked to be slapped, which ones cried afterward, which ones never wanted to take their boots off. You learned to recognise danger, not by the look in a man's eye, but by the quiet lack of a look. The ones who don't meet your gaze are the ones most likely to leave a mark. Your body's not yours anymore. It's your currency, your compromise, your curse. You sell it in pieces by the hour, by the moan, by the amount of eye contact you can maintain without going numb. Sometimes you think about quitting, running, starting over. But where would you go? Who would take you in? What would you write on a resume? Can fake affection in 6 languages, skilled in distraction, expert in pain tolerance. It's not that you like the job, it's that the world outside doesn't offer much better. You tried the factory once, sewing buttons until your fingers bled, and the foreman grabbed your ass like it was company policy. You tried cleaning too, scrubbing toilets for rich families who locked their sugar and looked at you like lice in a skirt. And the pay, God, the pay, 10 cents for 10 hours. At least here, you get to choose the misery. At least here the bruises come with a dollar bill and the illusion of control. A door slams downstairs. Mr. Brodie, the saloon owner, barking at someone again. You hear the clink of bottles, the hiss of soda water, the unmistakable jingle of coins being counted. He doesn't like you girls, says you bring trouble. But he cashes in just fine when the men linger over shots and ask if any of the upstairs rooms are open. Funny how morality melts when it's profitable. You finish scrubbing the last step and sit just for a second. The wood presses into your back. You breathe through your mouth because the stairwell still smells like someone threw up gin and regret down it. You close your eyes. You don't sleep much anymore. Not really. You rest in slices. 5 minutes here, 10 minutes there. The only time you get a real sleep is when you've taken something, laudanum if you can afford it, turpentine if you can't. You learned long ago that dreams don't help. They lie. They show you warm beds and honest men and spring fields full of poppies. Then you wake up to a stranger snoring beside you, and the ceiling threatening to cave in. You open your eyes to see Dolly leaning on the banister, cigarette dangling from her lips, her blouse unbuttoned just enough to suggest business without explicitly stating it. She's been doing this longer than you. She's got a scar on her lip from a sailor who didn't like back talk, and a locket she never opens because she says the picture inside is a lie. She's your friend, or at least the closest thing to one you're allowed to have. May, she says, blowing smoke, you ever think about jumping in the river? You look at her, not shocked, just tired. Every Thursday, you reply. She laughs, a short bark of sound. Yeah, Thursdays are rough. You both sit for a while, letting the quiet eat at the edges of your sanity. That's how it is. You don't talk about hope. You just pass it between each other like a cigarette. Brief, hot, and doomed to burn out. Downstairs the music starts. Early as always, someone banging on the keys like they're mad at the piano. Probably Max again, drunk before noon. You hear the squeak of a stool, the thump of a body collapsing into it. The room is waking up. The girls file in. Red lips, pinned curls, stockings rolled halfway up. They all smell like talcum and desperation. Some of them smile. Some of them don't bother. They're already rehearsing their lines. You look tired, sweetheart. Want to talk about it upstairs? You remind me of someone. No, I've never done this before. You're my first. It's a play. Always has been. You're an actress with no stage and no script, just improvising your way through misery. You learned long ago that men don't want the truth. They want softness. They want to be believed when they lie. They want to be forgiven for things they haven't even confessed yet. You give it to them. Not because you want to, but because that's the job. They call you a working girl. As if it's a profession like millinery or shorthand. As if it's a choice you made between tea parties. They don't see the math, the hunger, The way you had to pick between rent and shoes. The way a crooked smile from a stranger in a dark alley looked less like danger and more like opportunity. You didn't fall into this life. You were pushed. Slowly, by bills and hunger, and the way the world never quite bent in your direction. You tried, you failed, you ran out of people to ask for help, and then one night someone offered you a drink and $1 and said you were pretty. It wasn't love, but it was something, and after that, the rest was easy. There's a funny thing about forgetting your own name. It doesn't happen all at once. It wears away in layers. The first to go is the sound of it, the way it felt when someone said it with kindness. Then the memories that clung to it, a schoolyard, a warm hand, a ribbon in your hair. And eventually, the last part to fade is the voice in your own head that used to say it. When that's gone, you start to wonder if you were ever real to begin with, or just an idea someone gave up on. You look in the mirror, not often, but sometimes, when the light hits just right, and there's a moment just before you smear rouge across your cheeks or pin curls behind your ears, when you almost see her. That girl, the one with skin that hadn't been rented, lips that hadn't learned to lie. You blink, and she's gone, replaced by the version of you that the city built. One transaction, one heartbreak, one lost night at a time. You don't get keepsakes in this life. No boxes of letters tied with string. No heirlooms tucked in drawers. If you had anything sentimental, it got pawned 3 winters ago when the radiator broke and the girls were taking turns warming their hands on a kettle of beans. You've got exactly 3 possessions that mean anything now. A locket that doesn't open, a book of pressed flowers with half the pages torn out, and a scar on your hip from a man who said he loved you, and then didn't stop when you told him to. Love's a dangerous thing in this line of work. It shows up dressed like kindness, like promises, like a way out. But it's usually wearing a mask. You learn to spot the signs. The men who offer you dinners instead of dollars, who ask your real name, who say they'll take you away from all this. And for a second, your heart stumbles. Not because you believe them, but because you want to. And wanting, in this world, is more dangerous than any pimp. You tried it once. Trusted someone. His name was Samuel. Or at least, that's what he called himself. He had clean hands and read newspapers out loud, like he was teaching the letters to the walls. He made you laugh, which felt foreign and almost painful, like stretching a muscle that hadn't moved in years. He said he'd take you to Chicago. Said he knew someone who could get you work in a dress shop. He left in the night. Took your purse, your stockings, and your half-finished pack of Lucky Strikes. Didn't even leave a note. Just a bitter draft from the open window, and the kind of shame that doesn't wash off. You never told anyone? Dolly asked, once, why you stopped humming. You said you had a sore throat. Trust is a kind of luxury here, and like all luxuries, it costs more than it's worth. You head upstairs again. The hallway smells like perfume and mildew. Someone's crying behind a closed door, slow and rhythmic. You keep walking, that's the rule. You don't ask, you don't knock. You don't get involved, because involvement means empathy, and empathy gets you killed faster than disease. At your door, you pause. The paint is peeling. The number is faded, but it's yours, for now, until rent is due, until your luck runs out, until someone younger, softer, less damaged shows up and smiles with teeth that haven't been knocked loose. Inside, you change into your day dress. It's a faded blue thing with a rip under the armpit and a hem that smells faintly of last week's rain. You wear it like armour. Soft, useless armour, but armour all the same. The corset stays on. Always. Even when you sleep. Even when you cry. The pressure around your ribs is the only thing holding you in place most days. You pull out your coin purse. It's heavier than usual. You had a generous customer last night. One of those rare ones who wanted to talk. Just talk. Told you about his dead wife and his sick mother. Said your eyes reminded him of someone. Cried when he kissed your hand. Left without touching you. Gave you $5 and a look like maybe he was the broken one. You pocketed the money and locked the door behind him like always. You think about that sometimes. The men who are more lonely than cruel. The ones who treat you like a person until the alcohol runs out and they remember they paid for your time. They're the worst. The cruel ones at least are honest. There's a Bible on your nightstand. You didn't put it there. Some do-gooder left it as part of a reform program last year. You keep it because sometimes you like to read the Song of Solomon and pretend the poetry's for you. Not the whole book, just pieces. The parts that don't mention shame. You used to believe in God. Maybe you still do, in some crooked way. Not the church version. Not the judging, finger-pointing kind. But maybe the kind that watches from street corners and back alleys. The kind that sees you light a cigarette with shaking hands and still thinks you deserve something better. You light a match. The sulphur burns your nose. You hold the flame just a second too long before lighting the lamp. The room glows in amber and dust. It's too early for business, but you know it's coming. The knock. The face. The negotiation that isn't really a negotiation. You breathe. Not deep, just enough. And then you sit at your vanity. You open your rouge, crack open the mascara tin, take the stub of eyeliner and drag it across your lid. You put on the smile, the one that's too wide and too still, the one that men pay for because they don't realise it's painted on. You practice your voice. Higher, smoother, more forgiving. You look at your reflection. You nod once. And then, like every day before and every day after, you erase yourself. You leave the girl behind and become the ghost in the red dress, waiting to be touched and paid and forgotten all over again. Because in 1900s New York, being a harlot isn't just a job. It's a vanishing act. And every day, the city forgets you a little more, but not all at once, piece by piece, until all that's left is lipstick on a handkerchief, perfume on a pillow, and a girl who used to have a name. You live in a room above a bar that calls itself a hotel because it has a back door and someone scribbled private entrance on it in faded chalk. The wallpaper peels in long floral strips like it's trying to escape. The floorboards shift when you walk. Every creak a confession. Your bed sinks like it knows too much. And the walls, they're so thin you can hear secrets bleed through them like smoke through cotton. There's no silence here. Not real silence. Even at night, the building hums like it's alive and exhausted. Pipes gurgle. Rats thump across the rafters like drunk tenants. Somewhere, always, someone sobbing, coughing, or arguing about who took the last slice of bread. You learn to filter it out. Mostly. The brothel doesn't have a name. Not officially. But the locals call it the vinegar room. Because everything inside it stings. It's tucked between a butcher shop and a pawnbroker. Both of which do more business before noon than your place does in a week. On the outside, it's just another sagging brownstone, with crooked steps, and windows so greasy the sun gives up trying to shine through them. But after dark, The lamp goes red, the piano wheezes to life, and suddenly everyone remembers where it is. Inside, the furniture is a mix of hand-me-downs and what you might generously call antiques. Nothing matches, nothing is whole. The settee in the front parlour has a spring sticking out of the left armrest, like a trap waiting to snag someone's trousers. The bar in the back was stolen, or liberated, depending on who you ask, from an abandoned hotel during the blizzard of '98. It still has a bullet hole in the side from a man who lost at cards and blamed the gin. The rooms upstairs, yours, Dolly's, Minnie's, all the others, are barely more than boxes stacked like regrets. Some have doors that lock, most don't. Privacy is an idea, not a reality. You change behind half-broken screens, bathe with a rag and a chipped bowl of cold water, and hope no one walks in while you're trying to scrape off last night. The smell never leaves. It's always there. A thick soup of cigarette ash, body powder, unwashed sheets, cheap cologne, and old wood swollen with mould. It clings to your clothes, your hair, your lungs. After a while you stop noticing it. But when you walk past someone on the street and they wrinkle their nose, you remember. You go outside sometimes. Not for fun. Just to remind yourself the city still exists. Or that you do. The street outside is paved with good intentions and horse shit. The gutters bubble after every rain. Paper boys run barefoot, dodging trolley tracks and piles of whatever died last week. On the corner, old women sell potatoes out of crates that smell like mildew and desperation. Men spit, shout, loiter, leer. Everything is loud. Everything is sharp. New York doesn't embrace you. It presses against you. Heavy, wet, unrelenting. Like a body on top of yours that won't stop sweating. You cross the street to avoid the cop on the beat. Not because you did anything wrong, just habit. Cops don't need a reason. Your kind is reason enough. Your hemline, your lipstick, your tired eyes. You've been stopped before. Asked what you were doing out so late. Asked if your manager knew where you were. The polite ones don't search your purse. The polite ones don't exist. You keep your head down. You walk fast. You blend. The city is an ocean and you are driftwood. You make it to the corner grocer, the one who doesn't look you in the eye but still lets you buy eggs, one at a time. His name's Mr. Karpovsky. His wife sits behind the counter, knitting with angry fingers. They know what you are, everyone does, but they need the coins too much to care out loud. The food is half rotted. The apples are bruised. The milk is watery. The bread is yesterday's yesterday. But you buy what you can and leave before anyone recognises you. Or worse, before someone you know sees you and pretends not to. You pass a church on the way back. Always do. The bells are loud, the doors always open, and the windows shimmer with saints who never had to wipe another man's spit off their thighs. Sometimes you stare too long. You imagine going in, sitting in the last pew, confessing something, anything, but you don't. You never do. Because the second you step inside, it all becomes real. And out here, you can still lie to yourself a little. The neighbourhood used to be Dutch, then Irish, now mostly Italian and Jewish, with a few Germans clinging to the buildings like ivy. Every block has a different smell. Frying onions, vinegar, cabbage. The starch of wet laundry hung between windows like surrender flags. The laundry lines are everywhere. Whole skies of white underthings and trousers flapping like pale ghosts. You wonder sometimes how much of the city's weight is held up by clotheslines. How many of them are hiding blood, or birth, or both? On Sundays, the streets fill with hats. Men in starched collars, women in gloves. Everyone scrubbed and silent, filing into buildings that smell like incense and wood polish. You stay in bed. You pretend you're asleep. You tell yourself they're not praying for you. The city is never clean. Not really. Even the parts that look clean. The department stores. The marble steps of the public library. The gaslight theatres where they serve oysters and racism in equal measure. Even those shimmer with rot just beneath the polish. You've serviced men in top hats who smell like rosewater and still leave you with bruises. That's the secret New York keeps under its corset. The duality, the illusion. A lady upstairs, a girl like you in the basement, a ballroom above, a brothel below. You see it everywhere. The double doors, the double lives, the double standards. You once watched a man kiss his wife on Fifth Avenue, tip his hat, then disappear around the block and into your room not 15 minutes later. He gave you $1 and didn't take off his wedding ring. He said you were beautiful. He said it like an apology. You didn't cry. You charged extra. Back at the vinegar room, you slip in through the side, past the piano, past the drunk asleep in the corner booth. His face is pressed to the velvet cushion, mouth open, one boot off. He reeks of gin and failure. You step over him like a shadow. Upstairs, Dolly's braiding her hair by candlelight. The gas lamp's out, again. You share the matches because no one's paid the bill. Anything good out there? She asks without turning. You shrug. Rain tomorrow. She grunts. Always is. You sit. You don't speak. The room around you breathes and groans. You feel the weight of the walls closing in, just a little tighter than yesterday. And still, it's the safest place you know. You get used to things you never should. That's what this city does to you. You normalise it. The roaches on the stove. The bed bugs in your seams. The sound of coughing through paper-thin walls and not knowing if it's consumption or just disappointment rattling in someone's throat. You learn not to flinch when something scurries across the floor. You swat, you move on. You accept that the walls sweat in the summer and groan in the winter, and that the toilet's never going to flush properly again, if it ever did. There are rats in the cellar the size of cats, and cats on the street the size of nightmares. They fight for scraps behind the fish market, and then curl up under the porch like they pay rent. One of them, the girls call him Bishop, has one eye and a missing tail. He limps, but he survives. You respect that. The water doesn't run clear. It comes out of the pipe with a little hiss, like it's insulted you even asked. Sometimes it's brown, sometimes it's yellow. Sometimes it just doesn't come at all. When that happens, you fetch it from the pump at the end of the block, the one where the kids piss and the horses drink. You boil it if you can spare the fuel. You pretend that makes it safe. It doesn't. Bathing's a ritual you do with a rag and a will to forget. Once a week if you're lucky. Twice if business is slow. You heat a kettle on the stove, dump it into the chipped basin, and scrub your skin like it's a stain. But some things don't come off. Not with soap, not with vinegar, not even with prayer. You can mask it though. Perfume from the apothecary down the street. Something floral and forgettable. You dab it behind your ears, between your breasts, under your arms. The bottle cost more than your dignity, and will last half as long. When it rains, it doesn't fall. It leaks. Through the ceiling, down the walls, into your boots. It turns the alley into a canal of piss and broken promises. The smell rises with it. Every floor becomes a sponge. The wallpaper droops like it's too sad to stay upright. Mould blossoms in corners you didn't know existed. You wipe it away with a cloth. Watch it come back with teeth. There's no insulation. In the summer, the air gets so thick it could smother you. In the winter, the wind whistles through the boards like it's looking for someone to haunt. You sleep in your boots sometimes. You keep your coat on indoors. You learn which floorboards hold warmth and which betray you to the cold. And when the frost creeps up your window in delicate, icy veins, you trace your finger through it like a child pretending magic still exists. It doesn't. You don't live in a building. You live inside a dying creature. The stairwell spine is crooked. The floorboards pulse like ribs. Every door creaks like a final breath. You know which steps to avoid if you don't want to wake the whole house. You know which windows won't open no matter how hard you pull. And you know the way the walls shudder when someone slams the front door like it's a body being hit. And yet, people envy you. Out there, in the sweatshops and the matchstick factories, in the sculleries and boarding houses. They whisper about girls like you. They think you have money, freedom. They see the rouge, the feathers, the silk that shines even when it's fraying. They think you chose this, that you live above the rules. They don't see the bruises under the powder, the landlord pawing at your collar, the way you count every coin twice and still come up short. They don't see the girls who disappear. You remember Rosie? Everyone does, even if no one says it out loud. She was 17, maybe. Came in with baby fat and a southern accent. Said she was going to sing on the vaudeville stage. She lasted 3 weeks. Then she took a man upstairs. Regular type, nothing special. And never came back down. No one called the cops. You don't call the cops when girls go missing. Not here. Not when you can already hear the questions in their voices before they ask them. What was she wearing? Was she drunk? Was she difficult? And always was she worth finding. You checked her room, empty. Her things gone. But no one packed them. The landlord said she skipped out on rent. Said girls like that come and go. You never found her locket. The one with her sister's photo. You think about that sometimes. A sister somewhere. Waiting for a letter that isn't coming. Believing a lie that maybe Rosie made it big. That she's wearing pearls and laughing somewhere in a theatre dressing room. The truth rots in a cellar, or a river, or some nameless alley behind a meat packing warehouse. That's the environment too. The vanishings. The quiet consensus that certain people don't get justice. They just get forgotten. Diseases creep through the building like rumours. One day it's Minnie coughing. Next week it's Nora fainting in the stairwell. Then it's Dolly bleeding in ways that don't make sense. Asking questions no one can afford to answer. You don't go to hospitals. They cost too much. And even if you could pay, they ask questions you can't afford to answer. There's a midwife 2 blocks over, Mrs. Clancy. Smells like gin and carries her tools in a lunch pail. You've seen her extract a tooth with one hand and deliver a baby with the other. She never smiles, but she hums when she works, low, tuneless, calming like a lullaby, written in a language you'll never understand. Girls go to her for all sorts of reasons. Some come back looking lighter. Some don't come back at all. There's a girl on the 2nd floor who hasn't left her bed in a week. She's 16, maybe 15. Her face is pale, lips chapped, and when she breathes, it sounds like her lungs are trying to climb out of her throat. You bring her broth, whisper kind things you don't believe, and leave before the smell gets worse. The landlady won't call a doctor, says it'll scare off the trade. And you understand. That's the worst part. You understand. This is a building where someone's always sick, always missing, always bleeding into a mattress that never dries. The walls remember things you wish they didn't. The floorboards carry stains that no mop could erase. But still, every night, the music starts. The men show up, the lamp glows red, because money doesn't care, and neither does the city. You sit on the windowsill and look out over the street. Laundry lines slice the sky into ribbons. A woman beats a rug, with fury down below. Dust rising in clouds that coat your tongue even from 3 stories up. 2 kids chase a hoop down the street, screaming with joy like they have never known what it means to pay rent with your body. The butcher across the way scrapes blood off his doorstep with a boot heel. A priest spits on the sidewalk and blesses himself in the same motion. This is your world. This is your view. And it's beautiful, in the way a dying star is beautiful. Brilliant, burning, doomed. Night is when the building comes alive. Not in the romantic, jazz-playing, cigarette-glowing way the stories like to pretend. Not like the songs where someone leans on a fire escape and sings about lost love. No, this building breathes differently after dark. Heavier, hotter, closer. It hums with the secrets of everyone inside it. The pipes knock like they're warning you. The walls sweat. The floor groans like it knows what's coming and can't stop it. The moment the gaslight flickers to life downstairs, you can feel the air change. It thickens, like soup left on the stove too long. The parlour fills slowly, not like a rush, but like a stain creeping outward. A man here, another there. All of them pretending they just stopped by for a drink. None of them meeting each other's eyes. They bring the city in with them. The stink of the docks, the smoke of the foundries, the perfume of other women still clinging to their coats. Their voices are too loud, like they're trying to drown out their own thoughts. They talk about baseball, stocks, how the mayor's a crook, how their wives don't understand them. They laugh too hard at nothing. They drink like it's urgent. They look at you like you're their last chance not to feel hollow. You don't serve the drinks. That's Lena's job. She was a waitress once. A real one. At a diner where the tips were worse and the hands still wandered. Here at least, the men know they're not just flirting. Here there's a price. You'd think that would make it better, but it doesn't. Upstairs the rooms fill. Doors close. Laughter turns into grunts. Grunts into silence. Then footsteps. Then the sound of coins hitting a nightstand. Sometimes a thank you. Mostly not. The worst sounds are the ones that don't make it all the way through the wall. The half screams. The muffled no's. The crying that someone tries to swallow. You know better than to check. If you knock, you'll get told it's none of your business. If you interrupt, you get blamed. So you stay in your room. Or you stay in the hallway, listening, breathing, waiting for it to pass like a storm that never comes but always threatens. Outside the building, the city keeps spinning. The tenements across the street glow with oil lamps. You can see silhouettes moving behind curtains. A mother brushing a child's hair. A man putting on his coat. Someone crying into their hands. Every window is a story you'll never hear. A life you'll never touch. And still, the street never sleeps. Pushcarts creak past, long after dark. A man sells roasted chestnuts on the corner until his fingers turn purple from the cold. Another sells matches. Another doesn't sell anything, just stares at passers-by with hollow eyes, holding out a hand that no one takes. You see the same beggar every night. His coat is made of patches, and his beard is yellow where it touches his cigarette. He used to sing. Now he just mutters. Sometimes he stands beneath your window and whispers to himself like he's afraid the buildings are listening. Maybe they are. There's always someone watching. From the stoop. From behind curtains. From inside carriages with curtains drawn tight. You learn the difference between curiosity and malice. One lingers. One waits. There's a man across the street who's always standing in shadow. He never comes inside, never speaks, just watches. Dolly says he's a Pinkerton. Nora says he's a pervert. Minnie once swore he was an angel come to save them, and everyone laughed until she started coughing again. You tried to look him in the eye once. He didn't blink. You turned away first. That's how it is in this city. You keep your head down. You look the other way. You survive by being invisible. And when that fails, you survive by pretending invisibility was the goal all along. Even the buildings look like they have stopped trying. The bricks slump under the weight of the air. The windows are either boarded up or covered in lace, so stained you can't tell if it was ever white. Every alley is a shortcut to something worse. Every lamppost is missing at least one bulb. And every street corner has seen blood that got washed away with rain and denial. There's a corner near Bowery that always smells like burning sugar. No one knows why. No one asks. Like most things here, the city pretends it doesn't exist. The children playing marbles step around the sticky spot in the road. The dogs don't sniff there. Even the wind seems to avoid it. That's how the city works. It rots in places so slowly you forget it was ever whole. Then one day, a tenement collapses, and everyone acts surprised. You remember the fire last year? The girls across the street, in the building with the blue shutters. 1 minute they were there, laughing out a window, and the next they were ash and memory. The papers said it was faulty wiring. You know, it was a candle and a curtain and a scream that no one listened to. You watched the smoke curl into the sky like a funeral hymn. You watched the crowd gather, then thin out, then disappear. And the next day, a man stood in front of the charred frame and asked if anyone was still renting. The city forgets fast. That's its greatest talent. It forgets the poor. It forgets the women. It forgets the girls who die with names no one ever wrote down. That's why you write your name, sometimes, on the inside of dresser drawers. Just pencil. Just once. Just to prove you were here. Lila. May. Whatever name you're using this month. It doesn't matter. You write it anyway. You scratched it once into the underside of your mattress. Another time, behind the radiator. You like to imagine that someday someone will find them. Little echoes of you. Proof you existed. That you slept, bled, wept, lived here. But most likely the mattress will get tossed. The dresser sold. The building torn down or burned up or left to collapse on its own. And you'll be forgotten. Like Rosie. Like the girl on the second floor. Like the ones whose faces blur in your mind. Because there's only so much grief one head can carry before it leaks out your ears and into your dreams. This building is made of ghosts. Not the kind that slam doors or rattle chains. The kind that smile in mirrors. The kind that tuck your hair behind your ear and whisper, "You're still here. For now." That's what existence is in this place. It's not about living. It's about lasting. One more hour. One more night. One more knock on the door. You breathe it in. The dust, the rot, the perfume that doesn't cover anything but makes you feel like trying. This is your world. This is your home. This is the city that built you. and broke you and dressed you in satin so it wouldn't have to look too closely at the bruises, and tomorrow it will ask you to do it all again. There is no schedule. There is no shift. You're not clocking in or out. You're not signing a timesheet or waiting for a bell. You don't start your day because it never really ends. You just pick up where you left off, somewhere between exhaustion and submission, and carry on until your body taps out or your mind slips into the corner of your skull that no longer bothers to ask why. It begins with preparation, not for glamour, not for beauty, just for presentation. You wake up sore, with your legs sticking to the sheets and your mouth dry as lint. You piss in a chamber pot and toss it out the window with a grunt. You wipe with newspaper, if there's any left. You wash with yesterday's water. Maybe there's a little soap. Maybe not. Doesn't matter. No one's paying for hygiene. They're paying for silence and softness and the lie that you're happy to see them. You sit at the mirror and do your face. It's not makeup, it's armour. A smear of rouge to make your cheeks look alive. A bit of ash on the eyelids to make your eyes less tired. Powder if you have it. You brush your hair. You pin it. You practice your smile. The one that says, "You're not so bad," without meaning it. You check your teeth, your breath, your neckline. You take stock of your body like a butcher inspecting meat. Not good, not fresh, but sellable. You dress with intention. Bodice low, skirt just short enough to suggest something. Stockings pulled high. Garter worn loose because some men like that. Corset tight enough to lift what little you have left, but not so tight it stops your breath, because you'll need that breath later, when someone's on top of you, grunting like a dog, and asking you to say his name, even though you never learned it. The first man usually comes in before noon. You can smell him before you see him. Sawdust, sweat, pipe smoke, stale bread. He says he's got a short lunch break. He says he can't stay long. He says you remind him of someone, and you smile like you haven't heard that line 12 times this week. You take his coat, you take his coins, you take him upstairs. He's fast. Most of them are. Thank God. You don't fake it for him. He doesn't notice. You clean up. You rinse yourself with cold water from a tin cup. You check for blood. You check for something worse. You press your thighs together and exhale. And then you do it again. Sometimes they're kind. That's almost worse. The ones who ask how you're doing, who try to kiss you gently, who stroke your hair and tell you you're beautiful, those are the ones that sting. Because for a second, you let yourself feel something, and then you remember they're still paying. It's not kindness. It's customer service. You fake more than pleasure. You fake care. You fake innocence. You fake laughter. You learn what each man wants to see and become it. For the banker, you're quiet and obedient. For the soldier, you're fiery and bold. For the preacher, you're repentant but willing to sin. You bend into shapes that don't belong to you and speak in voices that aren't your own. Sometimes you forget which one is real, if any of them are. The worst ones don't speak at all. They come in drunk or angry or both. They call you names. They grab too hard. They don't stop when you ask them to. You learn to hide the bruises with makeup. You learn to carry a pin in your sleeve just in case. You learn which floorboards creak loud enough to call for help. Not that it always comes. Dolly once had a man pull a knife. Just a little one. He said he liked the way she screamed. She didn't. She bit him, broke a tooth, bled it all over the bed. He ran eventually. They never found him. The tooth cost a week's wages to pull. The scar is still there. There are rules, unwritten but ironclad. Never fall asleep with a customer. Never let him see you cry. Never go out with a man who says he'll take care of you. Never leave money where he can reach it. Never let them see your real face, the one with fear behind the eyes and regret behind the smile. Never tell them your real name, and always, always get paid first. Some of the men think they're in love. That's the worst kind. They bring flowers stolen from cemetery plots. They write poems with spelling mistakes and kiss your hands like they're not covered in other people's sweat. They say they want to marry you. They say they'll rescue you. They say, don't you want something better than this? And the answer is always yes, but not with them. They want to save you so they can own you. Just a different kind of cage. You eat when you can. A boiled egg, a crust of bread, cold potatoes from someone else's plate. Sometimes you drink instead. Gin is cheaper than food, stronger too. Takes the edge off. Makes the men look blurrier. Makes the sounds softer. Makes the part of you that screams go quiet for a little while. You get used to the feeling of being full of someone else and empty at the same time. You keep a rag under the bed in case they spill or spit or worse. You change your sheets once a week. Or not. Depends how many clients you get. Depends how many you survive. Money disappears faster than you make it. Rent, tampons, laudanum, black coffee to stay awake, blacker tea to pass the blood, a bottle of perfume when the others say you smell like mildew, a cheap corset to replace the one torn last Thursday. You hide what you can. You save what you can't. You dream of leaving, even though you don't know where you'd go. Labour here isn't measured in hours. It's measured in scars. In how many times you can say yes when you want to say, God, please no. In how well you can count cash with trembling hands and a bleeding thigh. In how fast you can clean up between men. The madam says you're lucky, that back in the old country, girls your age are milking cows and birthing children in mud huts, that you get to sleep in silk and wake up in a city full of opportunity. You nod, you smile. You don't say that the silk is moth-eaten and the city smells like rot, and the only opportunity you get is to be broken a little differently each time. This is your labour. This is your struggle. This is how you make rent. This is how you survive. Not with dignity, but with endurance. Time doesn't pass here. It loops. There's no day or night, just stretches of dim light and loud men, of red glow and shallow sleep. You stop tracking hours because nothing changes. The gas lights stay lit. The piano keeps wheezing out that same ragtime tune. The bodies keep coming, and the door keeps opening. You only know it's morning when the streets start to smell like bread again. You only know it's night when your knees start to shake. There's no such thing as a break. If you're not with a man, you're fixing your hair. If you're not fixing your hair, you're mending your stockings. If you're not mending your stockings, you're helping Minnie clean up the sick in the hallway, or standing guard while Nora gets rid of what she couldn't carry to term. Sometimes you pretend you're resting. You lie on your bed in the dark, staring at the ceiling, trying to slow your breathing. But even then, you're working, running numbers in your head. What you made, what you owe, what you can risk losing. Wondering if your last customer noticed the blood. Wondering if it was your own. Your body doesn't belong to you anymore. It belongs to the hours, the stares, the hands, the weight of every man who's ever said, "Come on, just one more time." It belongs to the corset that's bruised your ribs and the boots that blister your heels. It belongs to the cracked mirror that shows you a version of yourself you no longer recognise. You ache in places that don't show. Ankles swollen from standing, wrists stiff from bracing. A jaw that pops from clenching too hard while pretending you liked it. A stomach that cramps from not eating, then cramps again when you finally do. You think you're bleeding too often. Or maybe not often enough. Either way, you don't say anything. What would you say? You learned not to flinch. Not when a man pulls your hair. Not when he spits. Not when he leaves fingerprints on your neck, like he wanted to make sure you remembered him. You cover them with a scarf and tell the other girls you caught your collar on a nail. They don't ask questions. Everyone lies in the same language here, and Dolly once said, your first lie is the hardest. After that, it's just punctuation. You talk to yourself sometimes, in your head, not full sentences, just phrases. Hold on, almost done. Just get through this one. You don't say prayers, not anymore. Prayers are wishes with delusions of grandeur. You whisper bargains instead. Let him finish fast and I won't drink tonight. Let him be clean and I'll go to Mass next Sunday. Let me wake up tomorrow and I'll never say another bad thing about Mrs. DeLeo's stew. It never works, but it fills the quiet. Your feet are covered in cuts, not big ones, little nicks, glass shards from broken bottles, loose nails in the floor. You stopped feeling them a while ago. The bottoms of your feet are so calloused, you could walk across fire and not flinch. And some nights, you do. Your hands are always doing something, wrapping hair around fingers, buttoning blouses, hiding tremors, holding weight that should never be yours. You don't write much anymore. You used to. Letters you never sent. Poems you'd never show. Now your fingers cramp too easily, and the pencil is always broken. Besides, you're out of paper, and no one wants to read what you've lived. Your bed frame squeaks, even when you sit still. The springs are tired, like you. You stuff a rag into the joints to quiet it, but it doesn't hold. Nothing does. You once tried to keep a tally, a little book under your pillow where you wrote down each name, or the names they gave you. You got to 57 before you stopped. Not because it was too many, but because too many of them were the same. Charles, Henry, John, another John, always another John. You dream about them sometimes. Not all of them, just the worst ones. They show up with no eyes or too many teeth. They say things they never said in life. You wake up sweating. You try not to scream. You roll over and try to sleep again. You don't sleep in one stretch. You nap in intervals. 1 hour here, 45 minutes there. Between clients, between sobs, between someone else knocking on your door to ask if you have a rag, a comb, a spare spoon, a vial of laudanum. You always give them what they need, because one day you'll need it too. You've fainted before. Once on the stairs. Once in the bath. Once while on top of a man who didn't notice. He kept going. You woke up sore and disoriented and $3 richer. You spent the money on tea and morphine. Your breath sometimes catches for no reason. Just stops, mid-step, mid-laugh, mid-lie, like your body's not sure if it wants to keep going. You exhale slow and shake it off. You tell yourself you're fine. You say that a lot. I'm fine. To Dolly. To the mirror. To yourself. You wonder if your voice believes you. You wear a ribbon around your neck not for fashion, but to hide the bruise from the time he put his hand there. You said no. He said he liked the sound of it. You said it again. He said nothing. You stopped saying it. Mrs. DeLeo told you afterward, that's the business. You want pretty clients, go marry a banker. You didn't answer. You just soaked the sheets in lye and cried into the basin. Pain is private here. No one shows it unless they want to be replaced. You smile through cramps. You sing through migraines. You offer compliments with cracked lips and pretend that the pounding in your skull is just from the music. The piano downstairs hasn't been tuned in 2 years. It's missing 3 keys, but Max still plays it like he's in Carnegie Hall. You hate him a little less for it. He doesn't look at you the way the other men do. He just plays. And when you're lucky, when the building is quiet and the lamp is low, his music almost feels like a kindness. Almost. You once bled for 3 days straight. You didn't tell anyone. You just shoved cotton into your underwear, clenched your jaw, and got through it. When you finally collapsed in the hallway, Dolly found you. She cleaned you up. She didn't ask questions. She just lit a cigarette and said, "Next time, ask." You nodded, but you won't. There's always a next time. There's never a good time to be fragile. This job isn't about sex. That's what no one understands. It's about submission. Not the kind the men pay for. The real kind. Submitting to a system that chews you up, calls it love, then charges extra if you ask for a towel. It's about holding still while someone takes and takes and takes, and saying thank you afterward. It's about turning off pieces of yourself until there's nothing left but a smile and a muscle memory. And still, the worst part isn't the work. It's what you become good at. You learn to compartmentalize. That's the trick. You build little rooms inside your head, and you shove things in there before they can touch you. One for the pain, one for the shame, one for the memory of the man who didn't take off his ring, one for the night you woke up to find blood between your thighs and no one to blame but the air. You close the doors to those rooms and you lock them tight. But the thing about rooms is they're still part of the house. You live with them whether you admit it or not. You survive by lying. That's your real job. You lie to the men, to the madam, to the girls. But most of all, you lie to yourself. You say it's not so bad. You say it's only temporary. You say it's a job like any other. And in some ways, it is. It's soul-numbing. It's repetitive. It hurts your back. Your manager is cruel. Your customers are worse. But most jobs don't pretend to love you while they break you. You lie when you moan. You lie when you gasp. You lie when you say yes, and please, and again. You lie when you laugh at a joke you've heard 50 times, or when you pretend the taste of his mouth doesn't make your stomach twist. You lie when you say, "Come back soon." But the biggest lie of all? The one you tell the mirror every night before bed? "I'm still me." You're not. Not really. The girl you were, she left long ago. Or maybe she's still here, watching from the back of your eyes, screaming into the void of your silence. You don't know anymore. You just put on the face, tighten the corset, and keep moving. Because stopping feels like drowning. Because resting feels like dying. And if you're not useful, you're replaceable. You've seen what happens to the girls who slow down, who start saying no too often, who develop that twitch in their eye or that limp in their step. First, they're given less appointments. Then they're told to take a week off. And then suddenly their things are packed and their room's being cleaned out. The bed's still warm when the next girl moves in. No explanation, no goodbye, just gone. The city is full of replacements. Girls younger, girls hungrier, girls who still think they're in control. They show up with painted smiles and second-hand dresses, telling you they've only done this a little, telling you they're just trying to get back on their feet, telling you they won't be here long. You nod. You don't say what you're thinking. They'll be you in a month. And if they're lucky, that's all they'll be. The work never stops surprising you, not because of what's asked. You've heard every request imaginable, but because of what you're willing to do. You'll fake a fantasy. You'll play a mother, a nurse, a teacher, a virgin, a widow. You'll cry if they like it. You'll scream if they need it. You'll keep your eyes open when it hurts and your mouth shut when it counts. Because saying no is dangerous. Because saying yes is safer. Because silence is survival. You've learned to read them before they speak. You know who's rough by the way they hold their hat. You know who's cheap by how they ask for change. You know who's dangerous by the way they smile. Too long, too slow. Like they're waiting for you to make a mistake. You make 100 micro decisions in every interaction. How much to give? How far to lean? Whether to laugh or go quiet? Whether to fight or freeze? You become fluent in survival, in body language, in placation. It's not just sex, it's psychology. It's guesswork. It's gambling with your safety every time you open the door. And when it's over, when they finish, when they leave, when the air in the room shifts back to stillness, you don't exhale. Not yet. First, you count your money. You check the door. You listen for footsteps. Then you sit. And you try to come back to yourself. It doesn't always work. Sometimes you just lie there, one leg still hanging off the bed, staring at the ceiling as if it might offer you something. A sign, a crack, a voice that says, "You've done enough. You can go now." But it never does. The ceiling just stares back, and eventually you get up. You wash, you dress, you fix your face, you remake the bed, and then the knock comes again. You don't even flinch anymore. Your dreams, when they come, are strange. You're never you. You're someone smaller, someone cleaner. Sometimes you're not a person at all, just a bird in a cage or a shadow in a hallway. You wake up feeling heavier, as if you've been hauling something through your sleep and dropped it just before morning. You keep your voice soft, always, even when you're angry, even when you want to scream. A loud woman is a problem. A difficult woman is a liability. You smile when you're insulted. You laugh when you're afraid. You apologize when someone else bumps into you. You drink because you're tired. You smoke because you're anxious. You chew laudanum because it dulls the corners of the night. You count your money like it matters. Like it's not just paper and metal in a city that charges your body interest every day you stay alive. You think about leaving sometimes. Not to a better life, just to a different one. Maybe a farm, maybe a convent, maybe a train going west with your name on no manifest and your face in no one's memory. But leaving costs. And not just money. It costs the lie you've built. The one that says you're managing. That says you've got a system. That says you're not trapped. Just choosing to stay. And that lie is the only thing keeping you upright some nights. Because here's the truth you can't say out loud. You're not working. You're being worked. You're not living. You're stalling death. You're not a person. You're a product with shelf life, with markup, with expiration. And the city doesn't care if you spoil. In 1900s New York, everything has a place. A storefront, a station, a surname, a stairwell, and everyone knows who belongs where. You, for example, belong at the bottom. Not in some poetic, figurative sense, not in a dramatic Shakespearean tragedy kind of way. Just literally on the lowest rung of the city's social ladder, holding on with bloody fingernails and hoping no one above decides to step down on your head. There's a clear order to things, and it isn't hidden. The bankers wear top hats and patent leather shoes and walk like they own the pavement. The clerks carry ledgers and clipboards and speak in numbers. The mill girls and seamstresses march home in tired rows, smelling of starch and cotton. They nod to each other, they nod to the butcher, they nod to the nuns. But they don't nod to you, because you're not in the line, you're not in the club, you're not part of the machine. You're an error in the system, a malfunction in a dress with a tear beneath a sleeve, and lipstick that smudges when the truth gets too close. People don't make eye contact with you on the street, not unless they're paying for the privilege. You've learned how to look down at the exact right angle. Submissive, apologetic, forgettable. You carry yourself like a warning sign. Do not approach without intent. You've learned to walk with soft steps and smaller movements, like you're trying to occupy less space in a city already trying to erase you. When you speak, you soften your voice, not because you're shy, but because loudness invites scrutiny. And scrutiny is dangerous. People don't like being reminded you're real. It's easier to think of you as a shadow, something passing, something faceless, something you pretend not to see when you bring your children to the bakery or your prayers to the church. Even the other women don't trust you, especially them. Shop girls clutch their purses tighter when you pass. Factory wives whisper behind their gloved hands, as if you're contagious. You are. Not with disease, though they'll swear you are, but with something more terrifying. Freedom without permission. They see it as deviance. They call it sin. They see your rouge as rebellion, your ankles as threat, your very existence as a dare. Men glance. Women stare. Children ask questions their mothers answer in disgust. She's one of those. You've become a shorthand, a slur in human form. Your landlord calls you miss with a sneer. Your grocer calls you ma'am, like it's a bad taste in his mouth. And the priest, if he even sees you, only calls you anything when he's reminding you that God is watching. You hope he isn't. You've been called 100 names, none of them yours. Whore, tramp, Jezebel, street angel, loose woman, fallen girl, broken thing. Yeah, you've heard them spat, whispered, giggled, sung. You've seen them carved into alley walls. You've seen them mouthed by women who used to be you, and now pretend they never were. You can't rent a room above a certain street. Can't sit in certain restaurants without someone asking you to leave. Can't walk through the nicer part of town without a constable trailing behind, like a shadow made of judgment. Your clients might be mayors, businessmen, choir directors, men who own blocks and donate to orphanages. But the moment they buckle their belts, they forget your name and remember their dignity. And if you speak about it, if you hint at the truth, if you so much as imply that someone with a real job bent you over a rusted bed frame and left without paying, you'll be blamed. You'll be fined. You'll be beaten. You'll be ruined. As if you weren't already. Justice doesn't trickle downward. It flows straight into the gutters, where you walk, where you work, where your name gets washed away with yesterday's spit. The newspapers don't write about you unless you're dead, and even then, they lie. Unfortunate girl found in alley, known associate of disreputable characters. Not a victim, never a daughter, never someone who smiled once. Just a problem someone finally solved. You've seen girls dragged by their hair, slapped in the street, arrested for loitering in front of buildings they pay rent in. You once saw a policeman punch a girl so hard she hit the curb teeth first. Her crime? Asking him to stop fondling her friend. You turned your head and kept walking, because what else could you do? Respectability is a currency you don't carry. It's stitched into the hems of church ladies and tucked behind pearl buttons on girls who get married before they bleed. It's in the voices of men who shake your hand and then wash theirs. It's in the priests who look past you, the mothers who pull their sons away, the doormen who let you in the back, but never the front. Every layer of society sits on your shoulders, and every one of them pretends they don't see the weight. The city is full of masks, but yours is the only one no one lets you take off. You're marked, even when you're dressed plain, even when you're silent, even when you try to pass as someone else. There's a look, a slouch, a limp, a light gone dim in the eyes that they recognise. And once they see it, that's all they see. You tried once to lie your way out. You bought a nicer dress, pulled your hair back tight, walked different, talked like the girls at the school across the square. You got 5 blocks before a woman stepped in front of you and said, "I know what you are. Don't you dare walk past my shop again." You didn't. You cut through the alley. You went home. You folded the dress and didn't wear it again. Even the men who pay for you don't respect you. Not really. They might call you sweet things. Doll, sugar, kitten. But never madam, never miss, never your real name. They might kiss your hand, but it's a performance. They're the lead actor. You're the prop. Some men try to elevate you, give you pet names, offer you money to stay exclusive, take you out in a carriage after dark and call it romance. They want to pretend you're something else. A mistress, a companion, a secret they can treasure instead of hide. But there's always a ceiling, always a line. You'll never meet their mothers, never attend their parties, never be seen in daylight. You're a room they visit, not a house they build. And when they're done playing gentlemen, they go back to their wives, their children, their world. And you? You wash the sheets. You reapply your lipstick. You open the door for the next man who forgets to look you in the eye. You could be smarter than him, kinder, stronger, and it wouldn't matter. Because you are what they say you are, not what you are, and what they say is that you're beneath them. Humiliation isn't loud here. It's quiet. It's bureaucratic. It's printed on forms, stitched into uniforms, baked into routine. You don't have to be spat on to know your place. You just have to walk into a post office and be told you need to come back after hours. You just have to step onto a trolley and feel everyone lean ever so slightly away. You just have to exist, and the city will show you, gently, repeatedly, that you do not belong. Even the institutions have policies on women like you. They don't say it outright. That would be uncivilized, but it's written between the lines. The hospital turns you away unless you're bleeding from the face. The doctor at the clinic calls you miss with a smirk and puts his hands where they don't belong. The pharmacist tells you he's out of what you need unless you smile. A real smile. The kind that says yes to more than medicine. When you try to register your residence, they lose your papers. When you ask for protection, they lose your name. When a man breaks your rib, you lose your right to complain. You walk into the police station bruised and breathless, and they ask what you are wearing. They ask if you provoked him. They ask if it was a customer. And when you answer yes, they shrug. That's the risk, ain't it? Yes, that's the risk. of a living, of working, of breathing in a body that costs money. You don't report crimes, you endure them. That's the social contract. They get to hurt you. You get to keep your room. Fair trade. The charity missions will feed you if you agree to be ashamed. You kneel on a stone floor while someone in a hat recites scripture and tells you you're loved by God, but not by them. They hand you soup with one hand and judgment with the other. You eat it anyway, because hunger makes humility feel like a luxury. You don't get to be proud on an empty stomach. The city offers help with one condition: that you deny who you are, that you apologize for it, that you promise next time to be a better kind of woman. And you say, yes, thank you, I understand, even though you don't. Even though you know it's a lie. Even though you'll be back tomorrow with the same face, the same story, the same shame in your shoes. Public baths will let you in, but not without a stare. They call you the working type. They don't mean labour. They mean you're dirty in a way that soap doesn't fix. You wash fast, head down, eyes low. You pretend not to hear the whispers from the other stalls. She is one of them. You can tell. You always can. By the bruises. By the silence. By the way she clutches her towel like it's the only thing she owns. Churches will let you kneel, but not too close to the front. You sit in the back with the old men and the drunkards, and when you bow your head, you feel the eyes on you. You pray anyway, not for salvation. That boat sailed. You pray for rent, for steady clients, for no infection, for an exit. Some Sundays, the priest talks about women like you. Not by name, of course, but by parable. Jezebel, Delilah, the woman at the well. They all had something in common: sin and repentance. You understand the first, the second's harder to come by. Children are the cruelest, not because they know better, but because they don't. They speak the truth before it's been beaten out of them. Mama says not to talk to girls with painted faces. Why does she wear stockings in the summer? She smells like Dad's coat. You smile, you wave, you keep walking. You don't blame them. You blame the mothers. You blame the fathers. You blame the city that built its morality like a fence. High, white, and only painted on one side. Even the girls in your line of work judge each other. Hierarchies within hierarchies. If you work in a saloon, you're above the streetwalkers. If you work in a private apartment, you're above the saloon girls. If you have a sugar daddy, you're above them all, until he dumps you for someone younger. Then you fall back down the ladder, face first. You once tried working a private party in a brownstone uptown. One of the other girls, red hair, long nails, attitude like broken glass, took one look at you and said, "You smell like Bowery." Everyone laughed. You smiled. You stayed quiet. You served drinks, batted your lashes, and earned half what they did. They called you gutter girl. They meant it. You left with $6 and a bottle of someone else's perfume. You never went back. The man who sells you corsets calls you darling, like he's spitting in your mouth. The tailor insists you pay in advance. The laundress drops your clothes on the ground before handing them over. No one wants to touch your fabric. It might be contagious. The mail carrier won't knock on your door. He slides your envelope under the mat and keeps moving, like he's avoiding a bad smell. You used to get letters from your cousin in Pennsylvania. Then she found out what you were doing. The last one ended with, "You made your bed, lie in it." You haven't written back. You don't lie in your bed, though. You lie beside it, under it, on top of someone else in it. You lie wherever the moment needs you to. You learn to take up as little space as possible, You fold yourself down like linens on wash day. You dress in ways that show everything and nothing. Too much fabric, and they think you're hiding something. Too little, and you're advertising. Either way, someone judges. Either way, someone stares. The humiliation isn't always dramatic. It's ordinary. It's in the man who throws your payment on the floor instead of handing it to you. It's in the neighbour who slams her window shut when you step outside. It's in the way the gas station clerk wipes the counter after you leave, even if you never touched it. Do you start to internalise it? The way dogs flinch before they're hit. The way you apologise before someone insults you. The way you laugh at jokes that make your stomach turn. You shrink. You adapt. You accept. That's the system's real genius. It doesn't just make you small. It makes you thankful for the scraps it throws at you. Some people disappear suddenly. You hear the scream. You see the blood. There's no mystery in it. Just a chalk outline in an alley. A story whispered too loud in the hallway. A headline buried under more important news. But most of the time, it's quieter than that. Most of the time, erasure isn't dramatic. It's incremental. You're erased in pieces. One store that won't serve you anymore. One family member who stops writing. One face you recognise that now stares through you like you're glass, and not even the good kind. One man who used to call you Dove, and now crosses the street when he sees you. And it's not just people, it's places. Restaurants stop letting you sit inside. Schools stop admitting your sister's name on the form. Churches forget your pew. If you die, no one buries you in the proper cemetery. You go in the ground behind the fence, near the paupers and criminals and undesirables. No one puts flowers there. No one visits. The city doesn't need to jail you. It doesn't need to burn you at the stake. It just needs to pretend you were never there to begin with. Even your name, the one you started with, slips. You hear it less. You use it less. It starts to feel like something that belonged to someone else. Someone better. Someone cleaner. Someone with a mother who still claimed her. What's left is the name you gave yourself. The alias. The stage name. The one stitched into gossip and soaked into pillowcases. That's the name they call you when they want something. That's the name they scream, curse, whisper. That's the name you hate but answer to. Because you have to. They won't let you forget who you are, but they also won't let you exist fully. You're trapped in the middle, known but not acknowledged. Visible but disposable. You're the story everyone tells, but no one wants to know. And that's not by accident. Shame isn't just cultural. It's policy. It's strategy. It's a way to keep you compliant. Every time a man spits the word whore, he's reminding you who holds the power. Every time a woman sneers at your shoes, she's reassuring herself that she married well enough to avoid your fate. Every time a preacher condemns loose women, he's letting the congregation nod and say amen and feel holy, even while their sons sneak out the back to visit you. You carry that shame in your bones, in your walk, in the way you lower your voice at the grocer's counter. You apologise for your existence even when no one's asked you to. And the worst part, you don't even know when it started. You just woke up one day and realised you were smaller, quieter, more careful, like a vase they'd already cracked, trying not to fall apart completely. The system is efficient that way. You learn what to hide. You hide your pain, because pain is weakness, and weakness is expensive. You hide your joy, because joy is suspicious, and suspicious girls get punished. You hide your history because no one wants to know how you got here. They want you to be a cautionary tale, not a person. And when you do tell the truth, when you say, I had no choice, when you say he lied to me, when you say I was just a child, they don't hear it. They hear excuses. They hear sin. They hear confirmation that you belong exactly where they've put you. You once tried to join a sewing circle, just something small, a group of women stitching linens for a hospital. You lied about where you lived. You dressed down. You listened more than you spoke. You brought buttons. You brought bread. You brought your best self. And still, they found out. Someone's husband had seen you once, from behind a curtain, from across the street, from inside you, and suddenly your stitches were sloppy. Your bread was dry. Your presence was a problem. They didn't ask you to leave. They didn't have to. They just stopped passing you the thread. That's how it always is. You don't get kicked out of the world. You get shut out of it, inch by inch, door by door. And the humiliation when it comes isn't rage. It's politeness. It's cold smiles and long silences. It's been ignored so efficiently you begin to wonder if you ever mattered at all. And you carry that wondering into everything you do. You take it to bed with you. Not just the shame, but the ranking. Because even among the damned, there are levels. Some girls get rooms with windows. Some get the clients with coin. Some get their names known by the right kind of wrong people. And some, like you, just work, just survive, just clean up the messes no one else wants to touch. You envy the girls who look expensive, who still have luster, who haven't broken down in the joints. But you don't hate them, because you know they'll get here too, eventually. No one lasts forever. Not with the city pressing down like this. Not with the weight of judgment wrapped around your neck, like a velvet ribbon everyone pretends is fashion. There's a hierarchy in the humiliation. The lowest girls are the ones no one talks about. The ones who smell like basement mould and cheap gin. The ones whose teeth are going, whose cough won't stop, whose lipstick's been gone since morning. You're not there. Not yet. But you can feel the gravity of it pulling. And some nights, when the world has been especially cruel, when a client slaps you and calls you filth, when a constable throws your purse in the gutter, when a woman crosses herself just for standing too close, you think maybe falling all the way would be easier. At least then, you wouldn't have to keep pretending you still belong on the edge of things. At least then, no one would expect you to smile. Culture isn't just what hangs in museums or dances on stages. It's the air you breathe without noticing. It's the stories people tell each other at dinner and in church pews and behind closed doors. It's the song that hums beneath the city noise, too quiet to name, but too loud to ignore. And in your world, that hum has a single message. You deserve this. They don't say it outright. No one sits you down and says, this is your punishment. They don't have to. It's in the way the papers talk about fallen women, not with concern, but with morbid titillation. It's in the sermons that pretend to mourn your path, but can't hide the relish in their warnings. It's in the fables whispered to daughters before bed. Be good, or you'll end up like her. You're the scarecrow of the city, propped up to warn others where not to go. Not because you're dangerous, but because you were dared. The culture doesn't just condemn you. It needs you. Needs you to fail. Needs you to suffer. Needs you to stand as proof that sin is punished, that pleasure has consequences, that women who step out of line will find themselves under boots instead of beside them. There are whole industries built on your back, and none of them bear your name. The gossip mills, the moral societies, the rescue missions with their starched bonnets and starved compassion, the reform schools run by women with brittle smiles and hands that shake from restraint. They all need you to exist, as a problem, as a warning, as proof that the world still has standards. The brothel is illegal. Everyone knows that. The police know it. The aldermen know it. The preachers know it. But they don't shut it down. They could, but they don't. Because it serves a purpose. It absorbs the desires they won't admit to. It holds the secrets of men who make decisions. It acts as a vent, the release valve for a system built on repression and pretense. And so it continues. Protected, controlled, condemned in public, visited in private. You live in that hypocrisy. You breathe it in. Every man who comes through your door is someone who's told his wife he's working late. Every coin he gives you is soaked in a double standard. The culture teaches men that they are owed you, and it teaches you that you should be grateful for the attention. You're not supposed to want anything for yourself. Not comfort, not peace, certainly not pleasure. And the only acceptable feeling is remorse. The only acceptable desire is to be forgiven. And even then, only if you repent fast enough and suffer visibly enough for them to enjoy the spectacle. They don't want you clean, they want you cleansing. Scrubbing your knees raw in some mission house basin while a clergyman watches, ready to declare your soul half redeemed, provided you stop making eye contact. God is often used like a weapon here, not as a comfort, not as a friend, just a stick they can wave in your face while ignoring the men who made you fall in the first place. You remember the prayer cards from childhood? The saints with bleeding eyes and folded hands. You used to think they looked kind. Now you see something else. Compliance. Submission. A kind of holy weariness. And what they all have in common? They suffered. That's the lesson, isn't it? The culture loves women who suffer. It paints them in gold. It sings their names. It gives them feast days and statues, as long as they're silent, long dead, and preferably virgins. But women who suffer loudly? Women who survive without permission? There's no room for them in the church windows or the folk songs. You once tried to go back, just to sit in a pew, just to be somewhere that didn't stink of men and sweat and gin. You sat in the very back, veil down, heart pounding. The priest gave a sermon about grace. You clung to every word. And then, as the congregation filed out, a woman brushed past you and said, not even harshly, just firmly, "This place isn't for your kind." Not a scream, not a slap, just a line in the sand. You nodded. You left. You never returned. Belief in this world is something sold back to you at a markup. Want forgiveness? Kneel. Want safety? Obey. Want peace? Suffer more. Say less. You've seen girls trying to buy their way into heaven by doing everything right, giving up the work, wearing long skirts, reading scripture aloud while trying not to flinch when a man passes too close. It never works, because the moment you've been touched by this life, they don't see your penance, they see your past, stamped on your skin, permanent, unforgivable. They say God forgives, but his followers sure don't. So you build your own kind of belief. You start praying to things that aren't saints. You thank the light that flickers in your hallway for making it home with you. You offer blessings to clean linens. You whisper hope into a needle and thread when you patch the hem of your dress. You light a candle, not for God, but for Rosie, who died in the attic last winter. You leave coins for Minnie, who coughs more than she talks now. You pass food to Dolly even when she says she's not hungry. You create your own rituals. Quiet. Unseen. Sacred. Because if the city gets to make a religion of your pain, you get to make something holy from your survival. And maybe that's belief too, not in salvation, but in each other. There's a ritual to shame in this city. It isn't loud like a trial. It's not quick like a slap. It's slow, repetitive, formal. A performance with all the gestures but none of the grace. Every institution has its part in the ceremony. The law writes the script. The press provides the chorus. The church offers the moral lighting. And the public? The public shows up to watch you burn. Not literally, of course. That would be too honest. Instead, it's smaller flames. Whispers in line at the bakery. A landlord who raises your rent every time a new tenant complains. A clerk who folds your change with 2 fingers like you've soiled it. A woman who makes a cross over her child's forehead just because you walked past her pew. It happens in layers. A peeling back of humanity. Until what's left of you is just a lesson. No one cares if the lesson is true. What matters is that you stand still while they teach it. The culture needs villains. And in the absence of war or famine, it turns to you. Because you're easy to find. Easy to name. Easy to condemn without getting your hands dirty. You're not behind bars. You're not in chains. You're just outside the circle. Close enough to see the firelight, but never warm. Even the charities play their part. They call themselves missions, homes, refugees, but they're prisons with fresher paint. You remember the first time you went to one, not because you believed in it, because you had nowhere else. Your dress was torn. You hadn't eaten in 2 days. You walked 6 blocks with a limp and knocked on a heavy green door. They let you in, eventually. They made you sit on a wooden chair and talk to a woman named Sister Bernadette. She smiled with her teeth, but not her eyes. She asked how many men you'd been with. She asked if you had any diseases. She asked how many times you'd aborted. She asked if your soul was ready to be cleansed. You nodded. You lied. They gave you bread and a Bible and a bed that smelled like bleach and resignation. You stayed 3 nights, long enough to memorize the way the other girls wouldn't speak unless spoken to. Long enough to learn that obedience was the only currency they valued. One girl cried during prayers, said she missed her sister. They took away her meal, told her she needed to suffer in silence, said God only hears quiet girls. You left on the 4th morning, took a bar of soap from the wash basin and a roll from the pantry. You didn't feel guilty, you felt free, because you realized something important. Redemption is just another leash. They don't want you healed, they want you humbled, bent low, eyes down, hands clean, even if your heart is in shreds. They want you to stand at the foot of their altar and beg, not for kindness, but for permission. The culture wraps cruelty in silk and calls it virtue. It uses words like wayward, lost, unfortunate. You can smell the pity before they speak. It's perfumed with superiority. And they act like it's generous, like it's noble of them to look at you at all. As if their gaze is charity. As if being seen, not heard, not helped, just seen, should be enough. You start to understand that the real sin isn't the work you do. It's that you stopped asking for approval. You make your money. You choose your clients. You decide when to fake it and when to go numb. And that choice, even that small, blood-stained, limping choice, is more freedom than the rest of them have ever tasted. And it terrifies them. Because if someone like you can live without their blessing, what does that say about the rules? What does that say about the ladder they're climbing? They need to believe in order, in reward and punishment, in a clean, crisp line between good girls and bad ones. If you blur it, they panic, so they press harder. They invent rules about skirt length and bedtime. They write essays about female virtue. They hold rallies to save girls who don't want saving. They claim to hate your presence, but they can't stop watching. The culture pretends to forget you, but only when you're quiet. If you laugh too loud, or dance too long, or dare to enjoy yourself, they remember. Oh, they remember. They don't want you ashamed. They want you ashamed with posture. Graceful shame, acceptable shame. Shame you wear like a coat that they lent you, but you have your own rituals. Not loud, not dramatic, just yours. You lace your boots the same way every morning, left, then right, twice around. You touch the base of the bed frame before sleep. You light matches to count time when there's no clock. You keep one dress that's never been worn. You don't know why. You believe in signs. The way a pigeon lands on your sill. The way the rain starts just as he leaves. The way a song gets stuck in your head before something goes wrong. You hold these moments like talismans, not because they're true, because they're yours. Because they weren't handed to you in a pamphlet or a sermon. Because no one else can tell you what they mean. And that, in itself, is an act of rebellion. You reclaim meaning in a world that strips it away. They tell you your body is ruined, so you anoint it with cheap perfume and call it holy. They say your laughter is vulgar, so you laugh in the stairwell at 2 a.m. until the silence breaks. They say your name is dirt, so you say it anyway, not loud, but clear. You don't believe in salvation the way they do. Not anymore. You believe in sunlight through cracked windows, in friends who lie beside you when you're too sick to move, in the heat of your palm pressed to someone else's back when words won't reach. You believe in survival. And if that isn't sacred, nothing is. They tell stories about you, not to understand you, to erase you. Myths, really, urban fables. Cautionary tales with sharp morals and shallow truths. Always told from the outside, never written by your hand. They say you're lazy, as if exhaustion is a luxury. As if climbing 3 flights of stairs after 6 clients and a burst blood vessel is idleness. As if you chose this over a desk, over a garden, over anything at all. They say you're greedy, that you chase men and money like a wolf with perfume. But you've given more than you've ever kept. Given time, given skin, given comfort, given your 20s to a room that doesn't lock properly. Greedy? No. You're just trying not to starve. They say you're godless, because you stopped going to church, because you stopped kneeling before a man who never listened. But you still pray, just not to who they want. You pray to the friend who made it through the fever, to the night you didn't die, to the version of yourself that might have been. They say you're empty, a shell, a body without a soul, as if you haven't memorized the wallpaper in your room from the hours you've stared at it, trying not to fall apart. As if emptiness would ever feel this heavy. They say a lot of things, but never the truth. The truth is you are inconvenient. You exist in the gaps between what the culture says is real and what actually happens. You make visible what they'd rather stay hidden. Desire, power, the price of being a woman, the limits of grace. You are the crack in the statue, the laugh at the funeral, The proof that morality is often just privilege with a better tailor. And so they tell stories. Dress you up in symbols. Make you the avatar of every bad choice a girl could make. You don't even need to be present. Your idea is enough. Your silhouette. Your shadow. They use you like a punctuation. A hard stop at the end of every sentence about virtue. But inside, you know the truth. You know the girl who was thrown out because she got pregnant and wouldn't name the father. You know the one who was told she could stay, as long as she cleaned the man's boots afterward. You know the ones who stayed with their husbands, even when the bruises lined up like medals, because the church said to honour them. You've seen what passes for morality in this city, and you've seen what it costs. Respectable women get sick and hide it. You get sick and get blamed. Respectable women cheat and confess and are forgiven. You are punished before the act. Respectable women lock their doors at night. You don't even get one with a key. And still, they claim to be the righteous ones. Still, they claim to know what God wants. As if God ever lived in a room with mould on the ceiling and a man on top of you who smelled like meat and sweat and didn't care if you cried. As if God ever washed blood out of a nightgown in cold water and didn't scream. You stopped asking what God wanted a long time ago. Now you ask different questions. Like, what can I bear today? Like, who will still be here tomorrow? Like, can I leave a part of myself untouched, no matter what happens? You create your own liturgy. You light a candle for Rosie, another for Pearl, another for the girl who was here for 3 nights and then wasn't. You read fortunes in cigarette ash. You make charms from buttons. You place coins in freeze, because somewhere you heard it brings protection. It doesn't, but you do it anyway. You carry a lock of hair in your coat pocket. You hum a tune your mother used to sing before she stopped speaking your name. You write poems on the backs of old receipts and keep them hidden under your mattress. These are your psalms. These are your scriptures. Because belief doesn't always look like stained glass and hymnals. Sometimes it looks like staying when everything says run. Sometimes it looks like laughing anyway. Sometimes it looks like remembering yourself in a world that keeps trying to make you forget. You believe in memory, in shared glances across hallways when neither of you can speak, in the warmth of a hand over yours when the coughing won't stop, in the rare, precious night when everyone is home and no one is hurting, and the silence feels like peace instead of punishment. You believe in things they'll never write down, not in books, not in law, not in sermons, because what you believe in can't be turned into a lesson or a leash. What you believe in is real, messy, incomplete, broken and breathing, like you. There's a point where the pain stops being sharp, where the screams stop being scary, where the shame stops making you blush and starts making you laugh. That's where you live now. Not in the horror of it, but in the absurdity. Because if you didn't laugh, you'd claw your face off. Take the girl who gave birth in the hallway. Not in a hospital. Not even in her own bed. Just in the hall. On the second floor landing, between 2 coats and a loose stairboard. It happened so fast, no warning, no help. The baby came out blue and quiet. She wrapped it in her skirt, sat there shaking. The other girls passed her without a word. Someone mopped the blood. The madam doctor paid for ruining the rug. That was a Tuesday. By Friday she was back working. Or Dolly's jaw. The time it unhinged, literally, in the middle of a client. He laughed, said she was getting into it. Didn't even notice she was choking on her own blood. When she staggered downstairs later, holding a towel to her face, the barkeep offered her gin, not sympathy. He said, "Well, at least you won't be talking back for a while." That was a joke, and you laughed, because it was easier than crying. There's a man who comes every Thursday, rain or shine, wears gloves, always asks to be called father. He likes to kneel and say prayers while you stand above him, silent. He's a banker, or a judge, or something else with a title. He smells like lavender and secrets. Once, he asked you to slap him while he recited psalms. You did, gently at first, then harder. You didn't ask why. You don't ask questions anymore. He tipped well. Then there's the girl who swallowed pins. On purpose. She said she wanted to feel something sharp on the inside. The doctor said she was lucky it didn't kill her. You said nothing. You weren't sure he was right. Horror is slow here. It doesn't burst through the door screaming. It seeps in, like gas. You only realise it's choking you when your thoughts start looping, and you can't remember how long it's been since someone looked at you without calculation. You saw a man die once. Not a client. Just a drunk who fell from the stairs. Cracked his skull on the edge of the banister. Everyone paused for a moment. Not out of grief, but to see if it was someone they knew. Then the piano started again. The barkeep dragged him out by the legs. You didn't learn his name. Absurdity becomes normal. A girl sleeps under a table because the bed bugs won't follow her there. A man pays you to recite nursery rhymes while he cries. Another one wants you to dress like a nurse and take his temperature. When you ask what's wrong with him, he says loneliness. You almost feel bad, almost, until he bites. You've walked into rooms and found things you can't name, things left behind. A pair of socks stuffed into a drawer with teeth marks. A ribbon stained so deeply it changed colour. A doll with missing eyes. A Bible with pages ripped out and tucked under a pillow like charms. You don't ask. You just clean. Sometimes you forget how to feel disgust. That's the scariest part. You see a woman coughing blood into a basin and think, she should tilt her head more. You see a rat scurry across your boot and don't move. You hear someone crying through the wall and wish they'd keep it down. Not because you don't care, because you can't care all the time. Caring is a currency too, and yours is overdrawn. You've learned to laugh at things that aren't funny. A girl burns her hand on a lamp and jokes that it's the warmest thing she's felt in weeks. You laugh. You tell her she should hold the other hand up too, even the pain out. It's not comedy. It's survival. It's the kind of joke you only make when the punchline is death. You've heard the stories. The woman who sold her last dress for a bottle. The girl who married a client, only for him to lock her in a room and call it love. The one who ran screaming down 9th Avenue in her petticoat, begging the sky to open. It didn't. They always end the same way. She left, she vanished, she jumped, she didn't make it. Sometimes they whisper these tales like ghost stories. Sometimes they shout them like warnings. But always, always, there's that little silence afterward. The part where you imagine if it will be you next. And who will mop up? Absurdity is the girl with bruises saying she just tripped. Absurdity is the man with gentle hands and rotten eyes. Absurdity is the way you still wear rouge, even though you cry it off twice a night. Absurdity is bathing with lemon juice, because you heard it hides the smell of sin. You once saw a woman pray before work, not quietly, out loud, on her knees, in the hallway. Someone threw a shoe at her. She kept praying. You asked her afterward what she was asking for. She said, "A customer who leaves." You both laughed until your sides ached. She died 2 weeks later. A client held her down too long. The papers called it an accidental encounter. You called it expected. Horror here is not the screams. It's the silence after. The calm voice of the doctor who says she's too far gone. The tap of the coroner's pen. The way the other girls clean the mattress and go back to work. Because someone always has to. There's no funeral. Just the disposal. No eulogy. Just a shrug. And still, the absurdity piles on. You've been fined for loitering in front of your own building. You've been propositioned by the same officer who gave you a warning that morning. You've been arrested for indecency while covered head to toe in winter clothes. You once saw a man slap a woman for being too forward, then pay another one to scream his name while she scratched his back with her nails. It's a city of rules, but they only apply up the ladder. For you, it's all improv. What matters is the illusion. As long as the outside world can pretend they don't see what's happening here, the absurdity is allowed to grow wild, like mould, like ivy, like something fungal and ancient. You survive inside it. You don't scream anymore. You flinch. You make lists. You walk around messes like they're furniture. You nod when a girl says she can't feel her legs and offer her tea. Because you've been there. Because it'll be your turn again. Because horror here is seasonal. And your number always comes back around. Somewhere along the way, the difference between bad and normal stopped existing. A girl throws up blood? That's Tuesday. A man pays extra to be slapped until he sobs? Thursday. The madam locks a girl in a room because she mouthed off. And no one hears from her for 3 days? Don't ask. Just keep your head down. There's no climax here. No moment where everything collapses in some final scream. It's just a slow, unblinking nightmare that folds itself into every hour, every hallway, every breath that smells like old perfume and someone else's sweat. You begin to question your senses. The way the walls seem to breathe at night. The way the pipes groan like they're remembering something. You wake to footsteps that never arrive. Whispers behind the wallpaper. A girl humming a tune you don't recognise. In a room you thought was empty. And it's not the ghosts that scare you. It's how normal they feel. You once looked in the mirror and couldn't recognise yourself. Not metaphorically. Literally. The eyes were yours. The mouth. The scar. But the expression? That was someone else. Someone who had learned how to smile without meaning it. Someone who had practiced the exact tilt of her head to look innocent, desirable, forgettable. You held that stare for a long time. The reflection blinked first. Absurdity is realising that you've become your own disguise. You once watched a man untie his shoes before assaulting a girl. Carefully, lovingly, as if it were routine. She didn't scream, just stared at the ceiling and counted something on her fingers. Later, you asked what it was. She said, "Places I'll never go." And then she laughed. That's how you know the madness has settled in, when girls start laughing at their own eulogies. You hear things that can't be real. A baby crying in the walls. A violin down the hall, even though no one owns one. You wake with scratches you don't remember. With names in your mouth you've never said aloud. One night, you swore your bed sank while you slept. Not from weight, but from memory. From all the things done on it, to you, to others. As if the mattress finally started grieving. You let it. Absurdity is the client who says he respects you, then asks to call you it. Absurdity is the preacher's wife who tips you to disappear during church hours. Absurdity is being asked to sing a hymn while someone touches you, and doing it because they paid extra and you need the rent. The line between ritual and violation vanishes. Everything becomes a script, a performance, a loop you run until the shoes on your feet wear into your bones. You say the same 5 phrases 100 times a night. How was your day? You're so strong. I'm so lucky. Of course. Again. You say them until they lose meaning. Until they become sound. Until you hear yourself saying them and forget your mouth is moving. One girl made up a game. Repeat everything a client says back to him like a parrot. He never noticed. She did it for 3 nights, got bored, started making up lines. He still didn't notice. You laughed so hard, you choked on your own spit. Sometimes it feels like you're the only one who knows this is insane. That it shouldn't be like this. That waking up with bruises and pretending they're beauty marks is not a lifestyle choice. That giving away parts of yourself like expired medicine is not empowerment. But the more you say it, the more people blink at you like you're the strange one. They've all adapted. Maybe you're the problem now. You try to hold on to facts, anchor points, the shape of your own name in your mouth, the sound of your voice when no one else is listening. But even that begins to warp. You speak less. Smile more. Let other people decide what you're called. They rename you. Constantly. Lace. Angel. Baby. Cherry. Trouble. Never your real name. That's too heavy for them to carry. You once carved it into the underside of your bed frame, just so you wouldn't forget. Just so it could live somewhere. Just so you could. The absurdity comes in waves. A man who demands a bath before touching you, but refuses to brush his teeth. A girl who quotes Shakespeare during foreplay. A client who cries while asking you to pretend he's not there. It stops being work. It starts being theatre. Experimental, grotesque, and badly lit. You play the nurse, the widow, the ghost, the prize. You play the penance, the temptation, the sister, the silence. You play until you forget the original version of you, until the real girl becomes the character. And the character becomes home. Somewhere in the mess, you stopped asking if any of it made sense. Because it doesn't. Not the girl who talks to mirrors like they're people. Not the man who pays you to read the stock prices while he lies face down on the floor. Not the way your body still bleeds every month, like it believes you're living a normal life. You keep going anyway, because the city runs on madness, and you've learned to walk in time with it. There's a girl who never blinks. You've never seen her do it. She sleeps with her eyes half open, like she's waiting for something. Maybe she is. One night, she whispered, "He comes in through the cracks." You didn't ask who, you just nodded. Everyone has a version of he. He's the man who never pays, the one who never leaves, the one who stares at you too long in dreams, the one who shows up in 10 different bodies, but always smells like vinegar and chalk. You've seen him too. Maybe not with your eyes, but in the way your back stiffens when someone breathes wrong behind you. Some nights, you sit in the hallway with the other girls and list the things you've lost. Not items, not money, bigger things. A laugh, a song, your ability to cry at stories, your belief that food is always safe, your memory of what it felt like to be touched without preparation. You turn it into a game. Which part of you vanished last? Which will go next? No one wins. The building creaks in the wind like it's mourning something. You imagine it remembers every footstep, every scream that was stifled before it got too loud. You imagine it has opinions, that it's watching, that it's tired too. Sometimes a girl just leaves. No bag, no goodbye, just silence. You find a sock, a scarf, a note that only says, "Don't follow." You don't. Not out of cruelty, but because you know what it means to finally get quiet. Once, you found a lipstick tube buried in the floorboards, still full. The colour was almost violent, bright, loud, alive. Someone must have worn it once and realised it was too hopeful. You hid it again. Hope is dangerous here. Hope makes you ask questions. Hope makes you look people in the eye. Hope makes you think maybe the next room will be different. It won't. And still, you sometimes feel it flicker. When the sun catches in a puddle just right. When someone brings back bread and butter. When two girls hold hands without explaining it. But even those moments come with a cost. Because the absurdity doesn't allow joy without punishment. You laugh too hard. You get sick the next day. You sleep too deeply. You wake to a missing coin purse. You feel safe for even one heartbeat. Someone knocks on the door and asks for you by a name you haven't used in years. The system runs on balance. Or at least on cruelty disguised as balance. It lets you breathe just enough to keep you alive. Then takes the air away again. That's how it keeps going. Not with monsters, but with routine, with repetition, with the quiet knowledge that nothing is going to change, but everything still has to be done. You work, you wash, you wait, you laugh, you eat, you bleed, you survive. That too becomes absurd. The fact that you're still here, that your body keeps healing, that your lungs keep working, that you still want things, even if they're small, even if they're impossible. A quiet morning, a bed with no stains, a name said with kindness, a night that ends without bruises. It's ridiculous, but it's real. And some nights, when the candle burns lower than it should, and no one's crying through the walls, and you remember the sound of your own voice before it was trained into syrup, it almost feels like you're not just surviving, you're existing, even if it's inside a system built to crush you, even if it's under a sky that never seems to open, even if the horror has worn a groove so deep into your bones you can't remember how to stand straight anymore. You still exist, and that, in a place like this, might be the most absurd thing of all. The crash doesn't arrive like thunder, it seeps in like damp. You don't even notice the first drops. A missed meal here, an hour of sleep lost there, a bruise you forget to cover because your hands refuse to hold the powder puff steady. Then one morning you wake and nothing fits. Not your corset, not your name, not even the skin stretching across your ribs. Everything feels inside out, wrong way round, stitched from grief and fever. It begins with small betrayals. Your knees buckle on the stairs, and you pretend you stumbled. A customer laughs too loudly, and you flinch as if he struck you. You hear Dolly humming in the next room, and burst into tears because the tune reminds you of winter apples you haven't tasted since childhood. No one notices, or worse, they do, and look away. You thought breakdown looked like screaming. It doesn't. It looks like forgetting the sequence of your own routine. Rouge, hair, corset, smile. One night you find yourself in the hallway barefoot, hair undone, unable to recall why you left your room. You stand there, shivering, until Nora steers you back inside. She doesn't ask questions. You don't offer answers. The silence is thicker than pity. Sleep turns against you. dreams that spiral into looping corridors, doorways that lead back to the same red-lit stair, the same dripping faucet, the same hand knocking against your bedroom wall. You start jolting awake every hour, pulse racing, certain someone whispered your real name in the dark. No one did, or maybe they did, and the building swallowed the evidence, like it swallows everything else. Hunger changes shape. Some days you devour bread hot from the oven, chewing until your jaw aches, desperate to anchor yourself with weight. Other days the smell of stew rises from the kitchen and your stomach knots in revolt. Minnie slides her bowl across the table toward you. You push it back. Neither of you speaks. That is the conversation. Your body begins writing messages in bruises you don't remember earning. A violet bloom along your hip. A fingerprint constellation at your throat. You catalogue them in the mirror like notes a stranger left. Proof you were handled while your mind was elsewhere. One afternoon, the piano spills ragtime through the floorboards, frantic, bright, refusing to soften. The jingling rhythm yanks something loose inside you. You sink to the floor, back to the wall, hugging your knees while the keys hammer a happiness you cannot hold. You laugh, or cry. The sound escapes sideways, even you can't tell which. Dolly finds you there. She says your name, the house name, not the birth one, twice before you look up. Her eyes are sharp, but her voice is gentle. Get up, sweetness. They'll see. You do. You always do. You stand, straighten your skirt, wipe your cheeks, pretend you're only fixing a garter. Performance continues. Evening creeps in, bringing its usual audience of lonelinesses dressed as men. You paint your lips a colour called carnival, though the mirror shows a funeral shade. The first client tonight is old enough to be your father. He smells like starch and hand-rolled cigarettes. He asks after your health like the question costs him nothing. You lie, because the truth would cost you. In the dim room upstairs, he wants tenderness. You give it to him like a borrowed coat. When he weeps afterward, forehead to your shoulder, you stare at the ceiling's cracked plaster roses and feel absolutely nothing. Not revulsion, not sympathy, not fear. Nothing is heavier than that vacancy. It settles in your chest like wet wool. After he leaves, you sit on the edge of the bed and regard your hands. They're shaking. You press them flat to the mattress, willing the tremor to migrate elsewhere. It refuses. That's when you realize the collapse isn't coming. It's here. It's been living under your tongue, behind your eyes, inside the stiffened seams of every grin. You remember stories of girls who went mad? The sudden laughers, the window jumpers, the ones humming lullabies with bloodied fingers. You used to imagine madness as flame, bright, violent, visible. Now you know it's water. It finds every crack, seeps, swells, warps the beams until the whole structure groans. You touch the carving beneath the bed frame. Your true name, shallow but legible. The wood feels warmer than your skin. You whisper the letters like a half-forgotten prayer. They steady you, a little. Enough to stand. Enough to rinse the sweat from your collarbones. Enough to open the door when the next knock comes. Because collapse isn't the end. It's just another costume change. The show goes on, even if the stage tilts. You walk down the hall toward the lamp's red glow, and every step sounds like someone else's shoes. And still, forward. No one notices when you go silent. Not really. They say things like, "You've been quiet lately," or "You all right, sugar?" But they don't wait for the answer. Because they already know. Or they don't want to. Either way, the result is the same. You speak less, not just to clients, to everyone, because every sentence now costs something. You weigh each word like it's a coin from your own purse. The girls keep talking around you. Laughter in the kitchen, squabbles over soap, gossip about who's finally run off with a man promising a clean bed and a train ticket. You nod at the right times. You smile. You vanish when you need to. It's not that you don't care, it's that you can't afford to care all the way. There's not enough left of you to carry anyone else's sorrow on top of your own. You dream more vividly now. Not in metaphors. Not birds or oceans or mazes. You dream real things. Specific things. Your father's boots by the door. The smell of soap your aunt used. The way your cousin's laugh cracked when she lied. Waking from those dreams hurts worse than any fever. Because in those dreams, you remember who you were before you were this. Sometimes the girls come to your room. Not for anything in particular. Just to sit. That's how you know they see it too. The way your hands tremble when you tie your corset. The way your hair's stopped curling at the edges. The way your eyes don't look at people, only through them. Nora brings a slice of apple once. Just one, thin and crisp. She doesn't say where it came from. You eat it like it's the last fruit on earth. For a moment, you remember sweetness. For a moment you think, maybe I'll live. Then the feeling passes. You become a stranger to your own reflection. Not just your face, but your stance. The way your shoulders have learned to curl inward. The way your jaw hangs just slightly open now, always ready to say something soft, agreeable, nothing at all. Your real self is still in there, but buried, wrapped in too many layers of pretending. Clients stop asking for your name. They just assume one. You answer to all of them. Baby, cherry, madam, girl. The more wrong they are, the easier it is. You're not even offended anymore. You prefer it that way. If they don't know you, they can't really touch you. But every now and then, someone calls you by your real name. The one you carved into the bed frame. The one that fits like a second skin, worn thin but whole. It's usually a mistake. A slip of the tongue. A dream echoing in someone else's mouth. And every time, it feels like a pin pushed directly into your heart. There's a ledger in your mind now. Not of money, but of things taken. Your softness, your appetite, your memory of silence, your ability to fall asleep without rehearsing every bad thing you've done, but also your illusion, your patience, your capacity to believe anyone is coming to save you. And that's the twist, isn't it? The collapse doesn't strip you clean. It clarifies. You see everything now? The entire machinery. How the clients aren't monsters, not most of them, but how they still feed the system that breaks you. How the madam isn't evil, but how she's become an extension of the same brutality, softened by necessity, sharpened by desperation. How every girl in this place is both prisoner and guard, both victim and accomplice. You see how people pretend you're the problem, so they never have to ask how this street got paved with bones in the first place. And somehow, seeing it all makes you more alone than ever, because you can't unsee it. You can't go back to the beginning. You can't believe that any amount of good behaviour will buy your soul back from this place. So you stop trying to win. You stop hoping for escape. You start focusing on endurance. Not survival, endurance. The slow, practiced art of staying exactly alive enough. You make rules for yourself. Don't cry until the client leaves. Don't skip more than one meal in a row. Don't answer the door if you hear a knock and don't feel your feet. You begin to understand why some girls sing to themselves even when no one's listening. Why some light candles they can't afford. Why some keep a list of things they still love, even if it's short, even if it's nonsense. You make your own list, the smell of fresh laundry, the creak the stairs make when the night's over, the taste of mint leaves, even the fake kind, warm feet, the sound of Dolly swearing under her breath when she forgets her corset strings, the small, quiet moment before someone knocks. Some nights you look at that list and feel nothing. Other nights it saves you. You start writing letters you'll never send. Not to anyone real, just to the version of yourself that still had questions. You tell her what it's like. You tell her what she'll lose. You tell her what not to forget. Not the girl who loved lilies, not the girl who wanted to write, not the girl who thought sex was something sacred. You burn those letters, or fold them into scraps and stuff them under your pillow. Either way, it's a ritual, one you control, because control is rare now, precious, the only thing that tastes like freedom. Even the collapse becomes something you manage. You schedule your grief. Mornings only. You permit tears on Thursdays. You allow numbness, but not apathy. You forgive yourself for hating things you used to love. Music, dresses, the colour red. You mourn, but on your terms. And strangely that feels like strength. You may not be whole, but you are still here. You don't remember the exact moment when sadness became normal. It just seeped in. Like smoke. Like damp. It stopped feeling like an emergency and started feeling like routine. You wake with it curled in your lungs. You brush your hair with it, weighing down your elbows. You carry it on your tongue, even when you smile. No one notices. They call it growing up, or burnout, or tired. But it's none of those. It's grief without a funeral. It's rage that's learned how to sit still. And when you look in the mirror, you realise the scariest part isn't the bruises or the lines or the way your eyes have dulled like cloudy glass. It's that you've become so good at pretending you're okay that even you forget to check. That's the core of collapse. Not the loud part, the quiet part, the daily part, the normal part. It's not a scream in the night. It's a sigh that never ends. You begin to speak less even inside your own head. Whole hours pass in silence. Not peace, just absence. You don't daydream anymore. You don't make plans. You don't want much. Wanting leads to pain. And you've had enough of that. But then, there are moments, unscheduled, uninvited, unbearably sharp. You pass a bakery and smell oranges, and you remember a time you were held without being asked to give something back. You see a child in the market staring at her own shadow, giggling, and you remember what it felt like to be curious. You find a torn piece of lace in your pocket, not yours, and for some reason you hold it like it's holy, and for one breath, one tiny sliver of awareness, you realise you're still in there. Not untouched, not unharmed, but there, like a candle behind thick glass. Dim, but unextinguished. And that changes something. It doesn't undo anything. It doesn't make the nights easier. It doesn't fix the ledger of all the things taken from you. But it gives you a different kind of strength. Not the kind they praise. Not the kind in newspaper stories about redemption. Not the kind they mean when they say you're so brave. No. It's the kind of strength that refuses to vanish. The kind that keeps a name buried under the bed. The kind that watches everything break and still shows up. The kind that laughs at funerals, not because it's funny, but because laughter is the last rebellion. There's no redemption arc waiting for you. No grand rescue. No clean ending. You won't wake up one day with the past gone. You'll carry it. You'll carry you, Every version. The girl who tried. The girl who didn't know better. The girl who said yes because she didn't realise she could say no. The girl who broke. The girl who rebuilt. The girl who pretended. The girl who meant it. They're all real. They're all you. And you don't owe anyone an explanation. Not the client, not the madam, not the world. Especially not the world. Because the world was never built for you. And yet you keep living in it. On its edges. In its cracks. With hands calloused by other people's needs. And a heart somehow still intact. Even if it beats out of rhythm now. You find your own language for pain. You write poems in dust. You sing to yourself in a tongue no one else knows. You dance when no one's watching. You name stars out the attic window, even when the sky's too dark to see them. Because collapse doesn't mean disappearance. It just means rearrangement. You aren't who you were. You aren't who they told you to be. You're something else entirely. Something you built in spite of everything. Something they didn't expect. Something that keeps breathing. And that, in this world, in this century, in this story where everything is against you, that is a miracle. The floor creaks one last time. You're alone in your room. The lamp's gone cold. The air smells like nothing. Even the city outside is softened, as if it too is tired. You sit still, your hands in your lap, your breath shallow but steady, your name still carved beneath you. And for a moment, no one needs anything. No one is knocking. No one is watching. No one is deciding what you're worth. It's just you, and the dark, and the faint memory of light. Somewhere down the hall, someone laughs. It sounds almost real. You don't smile, but you don't cry either. You just stay. Quiet. Unmoving. Unbroken. Like the last candle burning out.